Okay, I was fortunate enough to be tested at the pathcare. So I had to go to pathcare and be taken to a private doctor who explained to me what we are going to do. And when we came to pathcare, we waited for quite a while. It was actually me and my son. My son is 16-year-old, and he was the contact to a confirmed case. So when we went there, we also didn't know what to expect. We heard the news that it is sore. And I went first for the test, and it is more uncomfortable than it is sore. What came to my mind at the time, I did not think much of it, because I think you never think that it will ever happen to you. So I never really thought much of it, even though I knew that the kids had contact with the other kids. I also somehow feared that it might be that I live in a household, and at the time I had about 7 kids that came here and that was living with me. But it never dawned on me that I will ever test positive or my child will ever test positive. We went with the mind frame that it will just not be positive. We were tested on a Monday. I remember it was the 27th, and the results came on the Thursday. It was around about 4 o'clock in the late afternoon. I was in my room on my laptop, and my son was also on his laptop listening to some music. He had earphones on. So that's the time when the doctor called me, and he told me that I should come. But then I immediately knew something was wrong if a doctor says come in. I had a sense of fear, and I felt numb at the moment. And so I told him, no, tell me what you want to tell me, because I know it's never good news if you guys tell us to come into the practice. So then he could hear that my voice started shivering. He could sense the fear and the stress that was building up. And he then told me that, well, your tests are negative, but it is your son who's positive. And at that moment, because I was just next to my bed, I just sat right on the floor, because I couldn't handle the body at the time. And I was very, very fearful. And that's when I realized the little that we actually know about the disease in itself. Because you immediately start thinking death and the worst case scenario. He's telling me I must get in the car and drive the doctor now. And I told him, I'm incapacitated. I can't even feel my own body. I can't drive. I asked him, but why isn't it me who's sick? Why is it my child? He's only 16 years old. How am I supposed to tell him? I was very emotional that I started crying. What came to my mind is I wanted to hug my child. I wanted to touch him. I wanted to tell him and hold him that it is going to be fine. But I also knew that immediately I had to isolate myself from him. I had to isolate him from the rest of the kids. So I didn't have time to process. I needed to immediately tell him. And I asked myself, how am I going to tell this child that he's COVID positive? I never prepared myself. I never got counseling. Nobody ever told me how you tell a 16-year-old child that they are COVID positive. Which is the hardest part. So we needed to immediately, all those texts and SMSs and WhatsApp that you've received about drink garlic and lemon and all of these magical things that they tell you, we needed to go back to all of those things and started making up homemade concoctions and started getting into the tradition of sanitizing and washing hands and disinfecting areas. There was no symptom with myself or anybody in the household. There was no symptom at all. What happened is when we came to Roman Catholic, I was joking with my son that, I think the patients, they eat nice. And I told him, can you smell the nice food? Because it was lunchtime. And then he told me that no, he can't smell. But I never knew that the loss of smell was a symptom then. I never knew. And I realized at the time how little I knew about the signs and symptoms. So that was a symptom, but at the time I never knew that it could be that when he says that he can't smell, that it could possibly be that. So when we just went with, other than the sense of smell that he lost, nobody else had any other symptoms in the household. We should normalize this conversation at home. Speak to your kids about this. Tell them not only what are the dangers, but give them a message of hope also. Because if kids only know the dangers, kids are very fearful. Me as an adult, I was fearful because I did not read much. During those weeks is when I started Googling and researching on this disease and positive stuff also that is actually happening. And I realized every time an advert comes and it says deadly disease, in my mind I would always, but it shouldn't be the message that we send out there. The message, the disease is not deadly with everybody, So I think we should normalize the conversation, and we should also be mentally and emotionally ready. That was the one thing that broke me. It was almost like someone told me someone close to me died. That's how I felt at the time. And we don't get information in terms of how we're supposed to pass on this information to your children on TV or radio or anything like that. We should, I think when we speak about educating the public, we should also spread the message of once you have it, what do you do? Because you get more messages of how to prevent it, but none of how to live with it. And also people to come out and tell their positive stories that they survived this and how they survived this. But I think we should turn away from ignorance and not reading on things when things happen because you think it will never happen to you. We should always prepare ourselves with information. Like they say, information is power. With the neighbors, because kids. This is Katutura Ochum. We say kids play around. They ball in the street, stand at corners and stuff like that. I felt that I had the responsibility of identifying the kids who were in contact with my son, at least during that week. So I immediately informed them that they might want to get their children tested. These were adults who took it very well, who appreciated the fact that I could tell them that this has happened to us. Just make sure your child is okay. And these are people who text and call in to see whether you guys are fine. They also came to pick up my son. It was 11 in the night. Perhaps people were also in their houses. So I've not really experienced anything but support, especially from the 2-3 neighbors that knew. The one would every day walk from his house and come stand at my gate, and we have conversation there, him checking and asking how we are and stuff like that, And the support we received from friends, from colleagues, people would really drop off lemons and ginger and garlic almost every day. Stuff for us to boost our immune system. You could only rely on people. Payday came, I couldn't buy my own groceries. I needed to send through a list to someone and send them the money to buy groceries and stuff like that. I think we had great support. And I'm very thankful for Ministry of Health. They really, really gave us great support. I got tired of their phone calls. They would call me 2-3 times a day. It's Dr. Who, it's who, checking up on us. I think it just became lesser when the cases started going up. Luckily for him, they were the first few cases of Windhoek, so it was a nice place. And for a couple of days, nobody came to him. The only person he had contact with was the waiter who would bring food, breakfast, lunch. He would knock, there's a table outside, and you would open and just get your plate or your tray, and then you put it back and stuff like that. Yeah, but what settled me was the fact that he was happy with the facilities. They were eating very good. They were never hungry, and he also said that he had some peace of mind also to think and So I had prepared him with books to read, and he also took a Bible along that he wanted to read also. Yeah. I think my message would be that especially at household level, we should normalize this conversation at home. Speak to your kids about this. Tell them not only what are the dangers, but give them a message of hope also. Because if kids only know the dangers, kids are very fearful. Me as an adult, I was fearful because I did not read much. During those weeks is when I started Googling and researching on this disease and positive stuff also that is actually happening. And I realized every time an advert comes and it says deadly disease, in my mind I would always, but it shouldn't be the message that we send out there. The message, the disease is not deadly with everybody, So I think we should normalize the conversation, and we should also be mentally and emotionally ready. That was the one thing that broke me. It was almost like someone told me someone close to me died. That's how I felt at the time. And we don't get information in terms of how we're supposed to pass on this information to your children on TV or radio or anything like that. We should, I think, when we speak about educating the public, we should also spread the message of once you have it, what do you do? Because you get more messages of how to prevent it, but none of how to live with it. And also people to come out and tell their positive stories that they survived this and how they survived this.